The main six summon the Pillars of Equestria and the Pony of Shadows.
Hold it! You know, I'm just gonna come right out and say it. The Pony of Shadows arc is one of the most disappointing arcs I've ever seen in this series, and this two-parter on its own is one of the weakest season finales. Hearing the synopsis involving the return of legendary luminary Star Swirl the Bearded, along with the ponies of legend to fight an unstoppable ancient foe, should yield an epic, entertaining adventure. What we got was an uninspired, lackluster, predictable story. Now, when analyzing this whole arc, I realized that there are two perspectives one must take when covering this topic. One is simply from the series itself, the second is from one who watches the series and reads the comics, which admittedly does set up the arc in Shadowplay more, but regardless of perspective, this whole arc still fails as bad, whether or not you read the comics. But let's quickly look back from the beginning, shall we, to see an overview of the arc. First, we had the individual ponies of legend in their respective tales, to Star Swirl banishing the Sirens, and eventually Stygian and the Pony of Shadows. Jumping ahead to modern times, the From the Shadows arc, which established Shadowlock and his descendants from the Pony of Shadows, but more importantly, it shows Star Swirl's book in the exact barrel in the exact same antique shop Twilight and the others visit in Uncommon Bond. And tied in during this time is Sunburst's reading of the Legends of Magic book, eventually discovering Star Swirl's journal, thus bringing us finally to Shadowplay. Alright, now that I've laid out the timeline, let's dig deep into the actual problems, starting off with the Pony of Shadows himself. He has to be one of the lamest villains the show has ever produced. He's almost a carbon copy of Shamra's shadow form, and despite all his ramblings to talk of revenge, he literally does nothing. Seriously, this guy's had 0% effect on Equestria. Why was he such a huge threat again? You know, Nightmare Moon may have not lasted as long, but at least she plunged the world into darkness for a short time. This guy was just the equivalent of... Now to talk about the convoluted nature of the Biller's artifacts. More specifically, how the hell did the items get scattered all around Equestria? And this isn't a nitpick, mind you. These are pieces necessary for the plot to continue. It's not like the Dragon Balls where we can visually see them shooting across the planet. No, we saw the artifacts clearly fall straight to the ground after everyone disappeared. And it was clearly stated that Ponehenge hasn't been touched since that event. Yet the items are gone. So what happened? Are we supposed to assume that some pony came across these innocuous items and instead of selling them or taking them to a museum, they took him to the far reaches of Equestria for fun? I don't know. For example, who went through the trouble of taking Somnambulous blindfold, traveling hundreds of miles to the Sphinx's pyramid, and then just discards it in the slime pit? And who hid Rockhoof's shovel in an ancient ruin and built a pedestal for it? And how did the current owners come across it?
It just raises too many questions.
Also, the cutie map showed places of the Pony of Shadows' dark influence at various places, but when they arrive finding nothing, they just head right back to the castle to only moments later show where the Pony of Shadows actually was. So what was the point of indicating all those other dark areas? The whole entire sequence was pointless. One of the many scenes that just bogs down the pacing of this two-parter. Now finally, we come to the worst element of Shadowplay, Star Swirl the Bearded. Where does one even begin? Since this guy was introduced, he's been touted as one of the greatest, wisest, and most powerful wizards in the history of Equestria, creator of over 200 spells, including freaking time travel, accruing years of adventure experience and knowledge, and we waited years for his presence to grace the series, and what happened?
They fucked it up!
Does this sound like the words of a wise master?
While I appreciate your enthusiasm, Twilight, this is hardly the time to take risks on half-baked spells. I doubt we can save our homeland with a conversation.
Or a stubborn jackass. Now look, I perfectly understand his frustrations in the beginning. I'd be pissed if my greatest sacrifice was in vain and my evil foe was unleashed upon the world, plus being in limbo atrophied his power as well. That's fine, but when you have the sage wizard, again with years of adventuring experience, interacting with folks of all type, encountering numerous foes and situations, you think he'd be willing to listen to any pony with any relevant advice. But apparently, martial might is the only solution to defeating the Pony of Shadows. There are no possible alternatives. And yes, even taking into account Star Swirl's unfinished spell event and him not understanding friendship hindering him socially, there's a difference between misunderstanding of friendship and single-minded thinking, not examining every possible strategy. And then there's the one line nobody can defend, and this cements him as just a terrible mentor and character.
The Pony of Shadows was not interested in reconciliation. Once a villain, always a villain.
Objection! Wow, this may be one of the most insensitive, insulting lines I've heard in this show. I haven't heard anything that offensive since...
What's a paladin?
Or...
Boom! Like happy festival fireworks, yeah?
I'm sensing some of you are in the dark. Let me enlighten you. First off, it's insulting Starlight because of her character development from evil dictator to reformation as Twilight student. Does Beardo even have an inkling to ask the reformed mayor about her experience?
No!
And she's also one of the couple in the entire group looking for alternate solutions, as she's basically a proxy for Stygian's villain reformation, and really one of the best characters in this finale, researching and taking the extra steps to find a less bold solution, but I digress. More importantly, that line is especially insulting to Princess Luna. Let me put it to you this way. Imagine this conversation was held in Canterlot Castle with Luna in the room, and she heard him say that. You tell me what that reaction is. Horror? Disgust? So anyway, Luna, according to that wizard, your longtime friend, mentor, you're a villain still. Yeah, you're still Nightmare Moon. Your character development, it didn't happen. Just go away. Back to the moon you go. Goodbye. In the comics, Star Swirl was so much better portrayed. He was an eccentric, fun, adventurous pony with a quirky personality that would admittedly get him into trouble at times, yet knew when to buckle down and make wise, thought-out decisions for the good of Equestria with his years of knowledge and magical prowess, overall making him an interesting three-dimensional character. This guy? I'm not even convinced this guy is actually Star Swirl. I think he's just some random homeless pony with a hat and cape. From now on, he's Crazy Steve. Anyway, next there's the whole situation with Stygian in the past, and that's such an artificial setup. The legends caught the stallion in the act of quote-unquote stealing their items, but the wise pillars instantly cast Stygian out, giving him no chance of an explanation.
The pony who brought us together only wanted that power for himself. Cast out and alone, this power-mad pony turned to darkness.
Objection! The moral in Legends of Magic number 3, Miss May taught to Luna about the importance of listening and understanding the full scope of a situation, and then and only then acting upon a decision. I guess she and Crazy Steve forgot that lesson. Oh my god, this is so dumb.
Stygian was the name the Pony of Shadows gave up when he turned to darkness.
He ceased to be Anakin Skywalker and became Darth Vader.
He wanted more power than he had, and that desire led him down a path from which there is no return.
He's more machine now than man.
Here's why they dumbed down Star Swirl's character. They wanted to introduce a moral about your heroes aren't always what they made out to be, too constantly put down in Twilight, which admittedly is a fine lesson and not following blindly, but if you have to nerf a character's personality just to prove it, what's the point? It's just manipulative. Again, a similar style of story, much better in the Reflections arc. So this whole conflict derived from a misunderstanding, thus making all the pillars look like a bunch of idiots.
With them, I thought I could be a pillar too, and stand by their side in battle. I never wanted to steal their power.
And you're an idiot.
Instead of listening, we turned our backs on you. Pride clouded my judgment.
No, you just took 1 second to assess the situation and assume that he was a power-mad pony. That is ignorance. So there you have it. A disappointing, anti-climactic finale that led to one of the weakest season finales in the whole series. And after all this build-up from the show and the comics, establishing the Pony of Shadows, Star Swirl, and the other pillars, this was just a dull conclusion to something that had so much potential. I'm not asking for a super mega ultra earth-shattering battle, but maybe if we spaced out the retrieval of these artifacts throughout season 7, we could have had so much more time for the main 6 interacting with, the original main 6. Sure, we got to see them in episodes like Campfire Tales and Health of Information, but that was just to establish who they are. In Shadowplay, we could have had every pony hanging out more, trading knowledge, bouncing ideas back and forth, and creating a much more fluent conflict that doesn't feel as rushed. And Star Swirl, he can be difficult in accepting help from others and struggle understanding friendship, but in a way that makes him realize that the old ways aren't always the best, and times have changed for new methods of thinking, rather than my way or the highway. So is there anything actually good here? Not a lot, but yes, Starly was without a doubt the best element of the story. Being the voice of reason, using knowledge of her old villainous ways, making logical, thought-out decisions to save every pony. Twilight fangirling over Star Swirl was highly entertaining. The main 6 during their artifact hunt did have some entertaining and comedic moments, and along with that, I liked the world building and traveling across Equestria, all the while revisiting familiar places. It was fun. Other than that, I really have nothing else to say here. I don't know who dropped the ball here, but hopefully we can recover in season 8. Well, that's it for today, guys. Until next time, MC out.